This yin yoga sequence will include a reclined internal rotation hip posture, and then a lateral bend known as side seal. It'll also include a posture, an opener for the lower leg, the calf, and the ankle, and also a reclined prone twist pose. Props that might be useful might be a strap. If you have a yoga strap that you can make an adjustable loop in that will hold, it might come in handy depending on if you're internally rotated or not. Also, soft padding whenever there's too painful of a pressure point. So a few pillows, a few blankets. If you have a yoga bolster, that always can be handy as well. The theme, the story for today's class will be the offering basket. This practice is going to start with a little bit of centering to get in touch with one's inner ground. So that'll include an accessible posture where you can cultivate a sense of stability and peace, and a little bit of breath work. So I will suggest reclined child's pose, kind of a wide-legged child's pose, but if there's some other kind of starting point or seated posture that you would like to begin with, then that's best to begin a posture that way. But for wide-legged child's pose, come on to hands and knees, come into a tabletop position, and then bring your knees a little bit wider than your hips. So maybe mat width if you're using a mat. Big toes, feet can be some comfortable place. Maybe the big toes touch. Sink your hips back towards your heels until they stop, and they might not stop right at your heels. You can use padding underneath your torso to help prop your torso up. Maybe it's a bunch of blankets or pillows or a bolster here, and then you lower your torso forward. Arms extend forward, so this is extended arm wide-legged child's pose. We'll just stay here for a few breaths just to get started. And if this is too uncomfortable here, that probably means you need to add soft padding underneath your torso and your hips to the point to where it is comfortable here. And then you just check in. You check in with the places where your body are touching the ground here. Make adjustments as necessary. Maybe it's easier with your knees together to do this posture. And then just notice the air temperature of the room around you. Begin to slow down your breath. Feel the backside of your torso as you breathe here. And you can just continue noticing your breath here to cultivate the present moment, or you can try a breath count to lengthen the exhales here. This is to kickstart the parasympathetic nervous system, and also to create a sense of calm here. So I'm going to suggest 5 to 8 breath ratio. So as you inhale to a slow count of 5, and exhale to a slow count of 8. So same cadence, but longer exhales. So inhale, and then exhale more slowly. And you can adjust this ratio as you would like here. If you're into mantras, you can maybe include a mantra with this. I'm going to suggest a mantra. It's a pretty long mantra. So on the inhale to the mantra in this present moment. So the whole inhale, you're just reciting to yourself in this present moment. And then as you exhale, the long exhale, you exhale and your mantra will be, all I am is enough. So you inhale in this present moment, and then you exhale, all I am is enough. Inhale in this present moment. Exhale, all I am is enough. In this present moment, all I am is enough. So a few more rounds, either of just quiet, or of counting, or of mantra. At some point, start bringing your breath back to normal and start making little movements here and start bringing yourself up to tabletop. So hands come back, slowly lift your hips up, maybe bring your knees in so that they're underneath your hips. Maybe feet go out a little bit wider here. So a nice neutral tabletop. Your spine is feeling at ease here. We'll do a few rounds of cat and cow here just to warm up before we start in on the very long yin posture. So we'll start with cat here. So flex your spine, round it up toward the ceiling, tuck your head in your chin, tuck your tailbone, and just kind of keep pushing your spine up until you're feeling this in your shoulders, maybe down into your low back here. And then come into a nice cow pose. So cow pose is a back bend. So now you're arching your spine. Tailbone is trying to point up and your chest is moving forward. Head and neck can look up if that's okay with you. So nice cow pose here, and then come back into cat here, and then into cow, and then begin to cycle here. Maybe 2 or 3 more cycles at your own pace. You can sync this motion with your breath. So maybe you inhale into cow, and then you exhale into cat. 1 more cycle here between cat and cow. And then bring yourself back to neutral. And then we'll get set up for our first long yin posture. The first long yin posture, I don't have a name for it. It's internal rotation, and there'll be an alternative, an external rotated pose. So this is basically an alternative to reclined butterfly pose, the restorative posture. And you can do this several ways. You can do this with padding or without padding. I'll maybe demonstrate this first without padding to show you the basic posture, and then maybe show you with some padding here. So what you'll do is you'll make your way onto your back. This is without padding here. Bend your knees, put your feet on the floor about hip width apart. Now the idea here is I'm trying to get internally rotated into my hip sockets. I myself am not very internally rotated, so this is actually a difficult posture for me. What you'll do is you'll take your feet and move them away from each other. So the left foot kind of wanders over to the left edge. If you're using a yoga mat, you can use the left edge of the yoga mat. The right foot wanders up to the right several inches, maybe to the right edge of the yoga mat. And then you allow your knees to fall together. This is a yin pose, so we're wanting to relax muscles here. I'm not very internally rotated, so I have to engage muscles to get my knees together here. And this is the posture, to just stay like this. Now, if you are internally rotated, you probably don't have to have any muscle engagement to keep your knees together. I do, so if I want this to be a yin posture, I have to use a prop. So this is where the strap comes in handy. So you can take a strap with a loop, put the loop around both of your legs, just right at the knee, right at knee level, right above the knee. And then tighten the strap up. This is for those of you who aren't internally rotated, which I'm not sure. Put the strap just to hold your knees together, and then walk your feet apart here. As far as they go until you still start feeling some pressure, either in the hip sockets, or in the knees, or in the ankles. Not to the point where it's painful, but just where you're feeling something. And again, if you're naturally internally rotated, you don't need the strap because your knees will just lie together here. So this is the basic posture without padding. Now you can add some padding if you want a little bit of a back bend to this here. So you can either take some pillows if you don't have a yoga bolster. But if you have a yoga bolster, you can take the yoga bolster, and place it right up against your low back, the narrow end, and then lean back on that. This creates a tiny little back bend in your low back so that you get a little bit of a back bend in this posture too. So it takes, and then you can do this posture. Now if this is just too awkward or frustrating or painful because of lack of internal rotation in your hip sockets, then the alternative to this is reclined butterfly pose, which is external rotation. So if you would like to do that, then it's this setup, only knees go out wide to either side and feet come together to make the butterfly legs. And you can substitute this pose if you're not liking the internal rotation posture. So we'll stay here for a couple more minutes here in this posture. So find your version. Again, if you're not an internal rotation type person and this is creating too much pain, then try reclined butterfly. If you are, like for me, I like this pose because I'm actually feeling a lot simply because I don't have a lot of internal rotation in my hip sockets. Some people do. If you have a lot, you can go pretty wide with your feet out to either side here. So we'll stay here for about another, you've been here the whole time just listening to me talking, then you can just stay here for another minute and a half or so. And just soften here. So we're taking a yin attitude, and a yin attitude is we're finding a position of support so that the muscles can soften and be quiet here. That way the pressure, the stuckness of the posture goes into the connective tissue here. Here I'm trying to pressurize the internal workings of my hip sockets here. And I'm doing that with time. So the three principles of yin are this, is you come into a yoga posture, you go to a place where your body starts to feel pressure, to feel resistance, to real stuckness here. So you are feeling something, you're moving by feel. And then, but it's not painful, it's not injurious. We're not driving ourselves here, we're just driving to a natural stopping point where the connective tissue system is under some sort of traction. So that's our edge, and in the beginning it's kind of hard to find our edge because we either feel nothing or we're a little bit too aggressive and we drive ourselves into a painful position that's actually hurting us. So it takes a while to figure out where the edge is at. Second principle of yin is once we've found that spot where we're kind of stuck, then we want to just kind of stay for a while. This is called stillness. This takes patience and fortitude because in our culture, we're unconsciously always wanting to be active and to move. And it kind of sometimes doesn't feel right to be still. This is what takes some mental focus. This is what takes mental attention, is to stay on guard about staying still. Now, if you're injuring yourself, you don't want to stay still. You want to make an adjustment. But if it's just uncomfortable traction and not harmful traction, then you resolve to try to stay here. Some postures pretty relaxing, like for most people, maybe this posture that we're doing, pretty relaxing, don't really need to worry about it getting too uncomfortable, but other postures might be. And so it's something to keep in mind. The third principle is called time, and it's the time of just staying in these different shapes that actually does the work. It brings the benefits to the connective tissue. It also brings a lot of mental benefits just from the mental focus spent in these postures here. So the story begins that there's once this teacher. This teacher is settling himself down to sit underneath a nice shade tree and feel vast field of grass. And he has a small group of students sitting around him, and he's getting ready to tell them a parable, to tell them a story. And the story he begins the story by talking about this great temple in this city, where people often go to meet, to honor If you're in this internal rotated posture, start just walking your feet back together. If you are using a strap or something, then obviously you want to loosen up your strap. And if you're using some pillows or a bolster to get that nice little back bend, then maybe roll gently off to one side to get off of the bolster, and then bring yourself up to seated. Clear your mat of props if you've been using props here. And for a moment, a nice counter pose to this, particularly if you did the back bend, is butterfly pose. Here. We won't do the inversion in that, we won't stay for a long time, but bring your feet together, knees go out wide. This will feel maybe particularly good if you did the internal rotation version of this posture. Grow up tall through your torso, and then just begin to fold forward. Again, we're only here for 2 or 3 breaths, or here in this nice, comfortable forward fold. Just go to where you stop, just to get a little bit of internal rotation. And a little bit of a forward fold here, maybe one more breath, and then bring yourself up. Bring your knees back together, extend your legs out long. And we'll move into the next yin posture. The next yin posture is called side seal pose. So it's a lateral bend, and there'll be an alternative to it if it's too inaccessible for you. The alternative will be banana pose, so I'll demonstrate that. So after I get done with side seal. So for side seal, come to sit on your side. You can start out with knees bent. So I'm kind of on the side, on my left side here. Left thigh and left hip here. Left arm is on the ground, kind of propping me up. So I'm kind of already in a version of side seal here. I'm kind of more in side sphinx. You can adjust where this arm, what this arm is doing to feel stable. You want this whole shoulder and arm to be a nice stable support. If it's not feeling stable, maybe change your arm 90 degrees or 45 degrees, figure out where that most stable part is. This is essentially side sphinx when you relax your torso and let your spine just naturally laterally bend here. Legs can stay bent, or you can try legs straight. Legs straight can be a little bit bouncy, so if you're trying this with the legs straight on your side, you're finding yourself a little bit too wobbly, then maybe put a bend in the legs so that you're feeling a little bit more stable. You want to feel like you have a lateral side bend. You're feeling the pressure, like the compression on this side, the lengthening on this side of your torso, and just the general lateral bend in your spine. You can feel if you really relax your muscles. You can stay here in side sphinx, or you can try side seal. Take your right hand, press it in the ground for stability, lift yourself up, and then lengthen and straighten this left arm here. And see how this feels here. Maybe I can straighten my legs out. So this is side seal. This is where we're going to stay for a moment. If this is creating too much pain, come into side sphinx. Come back down on your forearm, on your elbow here. And we'll stay here for a couple more minutes on side seal. So the idea is find something that's stable enough where you can relax your torso muscle so that the traction can just kind of ooze into the connective tissue. I find that I feel this more in my spine than I do in my side body, so for me, I'm getting more of a spinal workout in the lateral bend. But for some of us, this might be too hard on the arm and on the shoulder, in which case you can come into banana pose. And banana pose is bring yourself onto your back, legs extended, and then move your legs over to the right side. Kind of keep both right and left hips flat, and then extend your torso over to the right side so you're making this bent banana shape. You can extend your arms overhead, or you can leave them here, but you're just kind of moving. This is typical banana shape. You can cross your legs, you can move your head around so that it's more comfortable here. Just regular banana pose. If you have a sandbag, put a sandbag here to kind of keep this left hip down so that you feel the opening running up and down through the left side of the body here. Otherwise, we'll try to stay here, maybe another minute and a half, in some form or version of side seal here. Head can stay up, you can relax and just let your head rest. Maybe decide what to do with your right hand. I like to have it in front to create stability, because this is a little bit bouncy. Maybe it feels nice to have it behind you. So you get to experiment here. So again, come back to this idea of find your breath. Find the shape where you're feeling a little bit of traction, but someplace that's stable enough where you can soften the muscle fiber so that it can kind of leak into the connective tissue system. So the yin practice is an emphasis. It's an emphasis on exercising the ligaments, the fascia, the joint capsules, rather than the muscle cells themselves. So when you practice, have a more active practice where you're actually trying to engage and exercise the muscles, that's called yang yoga. So that's part of where the word yin comes from, is we have our yang exercises to keep the yang tissues healthy, and then we have our yin exercises to keep the yin tissues healthy. And if they're balanced, then if you have strong muscle and connective tissue fiber, then you're less likely to get injured here. So we're ready to come out of this posture. If you're in this whole side seal pose, slowly bend, use your arms to bring yourself down onto the ground here. And then when you get down onto the ground, maybe roll onto your back. A good counter pose between postures is to kind of bend your knees and just bring your knees into your chest. This is a very light forward bend again, just to do something different with the spine right after a lateral bend. But we do have the other side of the lateral bend to do. So when you're ready, bring yourself up and either do the other side of banana pose or try the other side of side sphinx. So for the other side of side sphinx, again, this time it's the opposite side. So we're kind of opening up through the right side now. Left side is compressed, and your options is to come into full side seal with this arm lengthened, hand rooted. This elbow is locked so that you're transmitting your torso weight through the arm bones here. And then this other hand is used for just stability, so it can be just kind of resting in front here. Knees can be bent if they need to be bent here, but you're feeling the pressure running through your torso and probably through this shoulder and through this arm. So if this shoulder is injured, you probably want to opt for banana pose on this side. And for banana pose on this side, you come to laying on your back. Move your feet over to the left side. Move your torso over to the left side to get an opening up through the right side here. And then we'll stay here for a few more minutes inside on side seal. So pick your lateral bend here. Maybe it's not side seal today. Maybe it's banana pose here. So there was this vast, great, amazing temple that people would often gather, and at the entrance of this temple was, as is often encountered, a table. Upon the table was a basket. It was an offering basket, and as people entered the temple, they would leave some sort of offering in the basket as they entered. And on one particular morning, very famous, very rich, very wealthy man appeared at the door of the temple. Very well known. He wore very rich robes, thick robes, very brightly colored. The edges of the robes were stitched with golden thread. And as he walked into the temple, he walked past the offering basket, and he stopped and he looked at the offering basket here. about 5 more breaths on the side of side Sphinx here. And he paused, he considered the offering basket, and then he decided he would actually leave an offering. So he reached into his robes and he grabbed hold of a huge bag, a thick cotton sturdy bag that was completely full of gold coins, probably a couple hundred large pure gold coins. Maybe just one more breath here, and then we'll slowly bring ourselves out of side Sphinx. So slowly bring yourself down if you were in side Sphinx. Maybe come back to your center line if you were in banana pose. And then from here, slowly make your way out. Come to a comfortable seated position, or if you would like to, maybe flex your feet. Kind of kneel back onto your heels, just to get a nice stretch in the bottom of your foot. If this is too painful, then just find some other seat. And then work your shoulders out. So side seal can be pretty tough on the shoulders, even though we're going for the lateral bend here. And then you can just kind of work your shoulders forward and back until they're feeling a little bit better. You work the pressure out of the shoulders. And then we'll get into the next yin posture. So for lack of a better name, I'm calling this posture the dorsy pose. And it's short for dorsiflexion in the foot here to get into the calf. So in order to get into this calf opener, this ankle opener, you can either come down into a crouch or you come from kneeling. Take your right foot and just set it down kind of in kind of a kneeling position here. Other knee is on the ground, so the left knee is on the ground, and you'll kind of sit down on that left heel. You'll have to adjust the angle of this knee and this heel for comfort. So the emphasis is we're actually trying to create pressure in this low foot with this posture. In this ankle, either the front of the ankle, the back of the ankle, and this lower knee. So this is my right leg here that I have in this position here. Left leg I'm just kind of sitting on. So since I'm trying to pressurize this part of my leg, this leg is in whatever position it needs to be comfortable here. And then what I'll do is I'll lean forward as far as kind of forward onto this foot until I feel something pressurized in this lower leg and in this foot here. We're all built differently, so I don't know exactly where you're going to feel it. You might feel it in the front of the ankle, you might feel it in the back of the heel. And you're just going again to where you're feeling some stopping, some pressure. So it can't be painful. If it's painful, you need to back yourself off. Not feeling anything, you keep pressing your torso forward. Maybe you reach your arms forward here. But maybe for a lot of us, you can just kind of clasp this front leg here. And so you have to kind of experiment and see what you feel here. The idea is to create some pressure either in the back of this leg or maybe in the front, some compression into the front of the heel. You're feeling this yourself here. Now if you're not feeling anything in this pose here, there is an alternative for this to go deeper. And I call this overstepping dragon. So if you're actually feeling fine, just stay here. If you're wanting to feel more, come into dragon pose. So right leg is forward, left leg is back. And then from here, begin to bring this right knee forward. Keep bringing it forward. You'll have to drag this left leg up to the point where this right heel's almost off the ground here. And maybe you'll feel something here. So notice my right heel is a little bit off the ground. That means I've got as much range of motion as I'm going to get in this front foot. And then I can just put my hands on the ground and then just stay here to keep all of this pressurized here. This back leg can be padded as needed here. But if you're feeling a lot in the initial posture, in the dorsy pose, in this posture, then there's maybe no need for overstepping dragon here. So we'll stay here for now, about another minute and a half or so on this side. And again, if you have, this is kind of to loosen up the calf muscles and the ankle joint. And so if you have fairly loose calves and ankles, you can maybe just substitute dragon for this pose, for something useful to do that's getting down into the hips. But this is actually meant to get into the lower leg here. So the rich man at the entrance of the temple, next to the offering basket, he takes his huge bag of gold coins and he holds it high in the air, kind of to make sure everybody sees his full bag of gold coins. He kind of looks over one shoulder, he looks over the other shoulder to make sure people are watching him. And then he slowly opens up the bag and he draws out five of these large pure gold coins out of his vast bag of gold coins, and he places them in the offering basket. Closes up his large bag and he puts his large bag back down into his robes, and then he continues on into the temple with the others. So a couple more breaths here on this side of the dorsal pose here. And then slowly bring yourself up and bring yourself out. Maybe extend your legs out long. And from here, point and flex a few times, just from kind of the staff pose here, just to kind of extend the legs and to give the feet a little bit of a break here. And then when you're ready, the other side of the dorsal pose here. So you can either come down into a crouch from standing up, or you can come from all fours into this posture. Now it's the left leg where the left foot is on the ground. And you adjust the right knee and the right shin here so that you can move this left knee forward and kind of lean your torso into this until you're feeling something down here in the left foot and the lower leg here. And we'll get this side started here for a few minutes or so. So again, this side is not working for you. You can try overstepping dragon, or if you don't have a lot of tightness in your calf at all, you can just try a dragon here. So one of my very, very tight and restrictive places in my body is actually my calf. So I'm always looking for different kind of things that actually make it into my calf. Now there's a lot of things that you can do to get into this lower calf. For this particular posture, I'm compressing the front of my foot. I'm feeling traction in the very back of my low leg here. If I want to get into my upper calf, I have to do something else. I have to do things like forward folds, or things where my legs are extended out. Since my knee is in flexion here, I've kind of released my hamstring here to help stretch on the connective tissue, the ligaments, the joint capsules, the fascia of the calf. So in other poses like caterpillar or dragonfly pose, I often feel those in different places in the calf. Almost every single yoga posture I practice, I feel it in my calf because my calf is particularly tight here. So we have about another minute on this side. So notice where you're feeling this. Make an adjustment if you're not feeling anything. If you're kind of just hanging out here in this kind of crouching pose, maybe lean your torso forward and extend your arms forward until you have enough weight to pressurize something in this low leg here. Or maybe you're feeling too much pressure. Maybe this knee, now this is just trying to be supported, this whole leg. So if there's something going on here that's not working for you. Adjust this. Maybe this knee has to come in, maybe this heel needs to come in further. This is just, this side of your torso is just kind of holding you up here. Whereas this is the side you're trying to pressurize. So just 3 or more breaths here on this side. So this takes some while to get used to, this posture. But the nice thing about this is if you can find a stable place, you're kind of all folded up and self-supported. But maybe there will be a support. Maybe you need a block underneath your hips, or maybe you need some padding underneath one of the legs here. We're getting ready to come out, so when you're ready, go ahead and plant your heads. Bring yourself up. Come back to this extension of the legs forward here again. Going to flex the feet a few times. And then maybe even come into downward facing dog, which is a yang posture, just to lengthen out after all of that folding up. So you'll come onto hands and knees, plant your hands, tuck your feet, press yourself up into downward facing dog. Maybe take your dog for a walk here for a few cycles. And then slowly bring yourself down. Next posture is a prone twist pose. Now if you have a yoga bolster, it's really nice to do this posture on a yoga bolster. If you don't have a yoga bolster, then some pillows might actually work too. So you want to have enough pillows so that your head and your torso are on the pillows. So usually it's at least 2. And you want to kind of stack them from end to end on your mat so that they're kind of even and overlapped here. What you'll do for this pose is come to sitting with your left hip, left side of your left hip up against the narrow end of the pillow. Bend your knees, sweep your shins back so that your knees are pointing perpendicular to your pillows. Maybe take your hands, use your hands and your arms to roll your spine nice and long. And then turn, twist your torso so that your upper torso is facing the pillows. And then use your hands and your arms to kind of walk yourself down onto the bolster or onto the pillows here. When you get down to your head, turn your head away and see how your neck feels about that. If your neck does not like that, keep your head turned the same direction as your knees here. Otherwise, you get a complete twist through your spine if your head is turned away. And then rearrange your arms so that they're supported by the floor. That way, when you get completely settled into this spinal twist, everything is being supported by something, either the pillows or the floor here. And then once you're settled here, this is where you stay. By the way, you can adjust your head. Sometimes it's just hard to pressurize your neck for any period longer than a minute or so. So if it gets uncomfortable for your neck in one position here, then turn your neck into the other position here. And then we'll stay here for a few minutes. You could actually take a nap here. You could spend 5, 10, 15 minutes here. We'll try to go for about 3 minutes on this side. After the rich, wealthy, famous man left an offering and entered the temple, a while later, a homeless woman walked in. She was homeless, she was hungry, she hadn't eaten anything for a very long time, completely dressed in dirty rags, all she could find to wear. And as she walked into the temple, she too passed by the table with the offering basket on it. And she paused and she peered into the offering basket and she saw all the wonderful gold coins that were in there. She contemplated that for a moment. And then she thought of something. She reached into her own dirty rags and she pulled out 2 alms. Now I maybe need to stop here and describe what alms are. Alms are these small coins that are almost worthless. they're not even as worth as much as pennies are. And she had 2 of them. Turns out it was all the money that she owned. It was the last money that she had. And she held those 2 alms in her hand, and she contemplated them for a while. She kind of thought about what she might be able to do with 2 alms, and maybe she could buy some food later. But she looked at the alms, she looked around the temple, and she looked at the offering basket. And finally she decided to put the alms in the offering basket, so she dropped them into the offering basket. And she too, like the rich man, continued on into the temple. So about 4 more breaths here on this side. Maybe reconnect with your breath. Reconnect with any sensation you might be experiencing here. Reconnect with any other kind of mental or emotional feelings that are taking place right now. And then when you're ready, let your hands, use your hands and your arms to do the heavy lifting of slowly lifting your torso up, off of either the bolster or the pillows. Maybe you didn't need to use any props here. Take some time to maybe do a counter twist or some other motions to work out the reverberation from such a long, deep spinal twist. And then we'll do the other side here. So when you're ready, either rearrange your pillows, your bolsters, or you, so that you're seated with your other hip. So now it's the right hip that's outside of the right hip, that's up against the cushions that you're going to use here. Bend your knees back so that they're parallel but pointing perpendicular to the yoga props. Take some time, take a moment here to grow your spine long, because it's easier to twist when your spine is lengthened here. And then twist your torso to face your pillows. And then once again, work yourself down onto the pillows so that the front of your torso, the front of your chest is resting on the pillows. And then decide which way your neck needs to be turned. In this way, maybe it's turned away from the knees to get a complete twist. Maybe that's too strenuous on the neck. So maybe it's in the same direction here. And then we'll settle here for another few minutes. Again, the idea is to be completely supported by either the floor or the pillows so that your muscles have a chance to soften. And then the twist, the spinal twist, goes into the facet joints, the ligaments around the spinal column here. And then we're using time to create that nice gentle traction, that connective tissue love to stay healthy here. So that was the end of the tale that the teacher was telling his students. And he paused for a while, and then he had a question for his students. He said, "So, now that you've heard this story," he said, "the question I have for you is, who gave more, the rich man or the homeless woman?" And he allowed his students to think about it for a while. The students thought about it, and they thought, well, it's pretty obvious. They were doing the math in their heads, and it's pretty obvious to them that 5 large pure gold coins worth a lot more than 2 worthless alms. So they thought they knew they had the answer. It was like easy story. But before they could answer, the teacher actually told them what the answer was, and the teacher said it was actually the homeless woman. She gave more. The woman gave more because while the rich man gave 5 big gold coins, he only gave a tiny fraction of his total wealth. Whereas the woman, placing her last 2 alms that she owned into the basket, gave everything she owned, and so it was her. She was the one that gave more. Three more breaths here on this side. And then when you're ready, again, place your hands on the ground. Use your arms to do the heavy lifting of lifting your torso up. And then when you get your torso up, slowly unwind and find your bearings. Notice the reverberation from that twist here. Maybe clear your mat of props. Bring yourself onto your back. So that was the last long-held yin posture before Shavasana here. When you get onto your back, a little bit of integration if you want to try it. Bend your knees, and then put your feet on the floor, and then take your right thigh, wrap it around your left thigh, so that your right shin is on the outside of your left shin. Draw your knees in. Take your hands, maybe cup your knees, and just hold on to your knees. If this creates a lot of pressure, you stay here. For those of you who can reach, maybe reach your left foot with your right hand, right foot with your left hand. And if you can reach, head, neck, torso comfortably resting on the ground, take your hands and start to pull on your feet and your shins. Kind of pull your heels down and towards your shoulders as far as they go until things stop and you feel a nice lovely pressure in your hips here. And then just stay here for 1 or 2 more breaths or so. Maybe pull down with one final oomph and then release. Unwind your legs. Feet come back to the floor. Now the other side. So wrap your left thigh around your right thigh. So your left shin is on the outside of your right side of your right shin. Draw your knees in. You can use your hands to help. Again, option is to stay here, or if you can find your feet with your hands, clasp your feet, and then pull your heels in towards your shoulders here until you're feeling enough pressure. And then just a couple of breaths here. Then release. If there's any other kind of final movements that you would like to practice before moving into your final resting posture, do those now. So you can practice traditional Shavasana, which is just lying on your back, arms and legs extended. If you have props around, give yourself permission to use those props. Maybe you want a pillow underneath your head. Maybe you want a little bit of height underneath your knees so that your low back can be soft here. Or maybe there's some other posture that works nicely for you. You can do legs up the wall, or you can even sit quietly in a comfortable seated position. I think I'm going to opt for that to end this practice. It can be cross-legged, you can be sitting back on the heels, it could be even sitting in a chair. If you are seated upright, then grow up tall through your torso just for a moment, just to open up through the front body so that you can actually breathe here. Then soften your face, whether you're lying down, sitting up, release your jaw, soften the inside of your mouth, let your tongue be soft. Soften the skin in between your eyes. Soften the muscles around each eye socket. So right eye is soft. Muscles around the left eye is soft. Forehead, temples, releasing. The skin around your ears, around your chin, around your lips, even around your nose. Let it all be soft. In other words, release the tension and stress that's being stored in the face. Eyes can be closed, looking inward, or they can be open, looking down and just being kind of soft and be focused here. Rest of your body is softening, growing heavy. Your lower body, legs and hips soft. Toes released. Arms, shoulders soft. Fingers released here. Postpone being a human doing. Give yourself some permission to be a human being. Allow yourself to have nothing to do and nowhere to go. Reconnect with the sensation of each inhale and the sensation of each exhale. Release, relax, and surrender your body-mind 100%. Visualize your true self, the self that goes beyond your egoic self, your file cabinet of labels, and connect with your expansive self, the self that is connected to all things, that just doesn't stop at your skin. But notice yourself that is part of the air of every in-breath, part of the air that is every out-breath, part of the self that's in the entire room, it's outside of the room, part of yourself that's connected to the world around you, part of yourself that's connected to the entire universe. This is your true self. Allow yourself to pay attention and to be within this present moment. The real self, true self, the connected self. There's another word for the true self. We often sometimes refer to the true self as our temple. Maybe you can contemplate, what do you have to offer? What do you have to offer your temple? Begin to deepen your breath. Begin to make small motions with fingers and with toes. Expand that motion into wrists and into ankles. Make little motions with arms and with legs. Begin to rock your head and your neck around. Maybe a little bit of motion in the torso. If you're lying on your back, then maybe gently bend your knees. And then comfortably roll over onto one side. When you get there, stay there on your side just long enough to allow yourself to cultivate a deep sense of gratitude
for your practice, for your efforts, but also a deep sense of gratitude for you, your unique embodiment in the universe, your temple. The universe is ecstatically joyful that you are here. And then when you're ready, bring yourself up into a comfortable seat. Give yourself a chance to settle. Find a nice, stable seat that feels peaceful and comfortable. And then bring your hands together in front of heart center. So I'll end practice with one chanting of Om. You can either listen or maybe even join in. The inner light in me honors the inner light in you. Namaste.